Is Talking Crazy 88. Back again with another live stream on the balcony on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Approximately 1 in the morning. Everybody else is asleep, but my dumb ass is still up. How's everybody doing on this beautiful morning, early morning if you're still up? Hope everybody's doing very well. I'm not going to keep y'all too long, because I know you have better things to do than listen to an old man ramble about the nonsense of life. Besides, you want to get your sleep. So I'm on the balcony with my CAO Italia cigar, and then just enjoying the evening, what's left of the summer. It's a beautiful evening too on this beautiful August day, this morning. And August and September are usually my favorite months of the year, because that's when the summer is almost over and the fall is beginning. And all the fall sports are beginning, such as the NFL, the college football. Actually, college football is going to begin starting up real soon, probably this week or next week. Man, somehow I'm looking forward to it, but somehow I'm not looking forward to it, because I didn't really get a chance to have a beach day this year. To see the women in their swimsuits and just sitting on the beach with a beer, watching pretty women on the beach. And I'm starting to rethink, and I know I flip-flop a little bit on the passport bros, but I'm really still starting to thinking very hard about, trying to find the love of my life in another country, which is highly unlikely, but I can have fun. And if your dating options here in the States is limited, I think that everything that's perpetrated out there on the internet, out there about the dating system, dating in the United States, is perpetrated on the internet and on YouTube. You can't really believe everything you hear on YouTube. Everything is manufactured for clicks and views. And the reason why I wanted to go ahead and talk about the dating situation here is because Earn Your Leisure had an Invest Fest. They had their annual Invest Fest down in Atlanta, which was I have some opinions on it, but I'm gonna talk to Sister Princess about that, because she has her own channel now. She finally got it started. The Activist of Capitalist. All right, and I think that's the name of her channel, but I'll put it in the description box so y'all can check it out. I have to say that I'm very proud of my sister. Started a YouTube channel, and my area of expertise is accounting, finance, and economics. Maybe we'll do a collab one of these days. Who knows? I don't know. If she lets me on her channel, I'll do a collab with her if she lets me on her channel. But I wanted the channel to take off and do very well, because there is money out here in the YouTube spaces. If you are still creative and you have a niche, is still wide open for y'all to make some money. So anyway, but I think I might talk about the Invest Fest, on my next live stream. Who knows? We'll talk about it and we'll go through it. But but there's one thing that stood out about that event is that Kendrick G had a singles event down there with 300 women looking for eligible bachelors who are entrepreneurs and who's already established entrepreneurs that's making almost 6 or 7 figures out there. At an event where only 30 men showed up. And I gotta say this. I gotta say this to the fellas, man. Who's proud of not showing up at these events. I mean, I don't blame you. Rejection is hard. Rejection is rejection can be painful, especially if it's rejection from a woman. Okay, who may or may not be interested in what you might be providing. It could be rejecting, because I've been rejected. Everybody has. Even the top players even the players out there have been rejected by some woman. Alright? Now I'm going to go another perspective on this, because we got to deal with we got to deal with this. In life, nothing is actually easy. And being rejected by a woman, that could be a blessing. It could be a protection it can be a protection, it could be a blessing. Because, let me tell you something, some people, a man and a woman that gets together, they were only meant to have a short story, and very few are meant to write a novel together. They were some were meant to write a short story together, and some were meant to write a novel together. You gotta look at it like this. If you're approaching a woman that you hardly ever know off the street, off a cold approaching, which is something that I never really do, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do that, because Coach Greg Adams, he pointed it out. There are rules for a fee, but there's rules for me as a man on approaching a woman. But those same rules do not apply. There is no rules that apply to a woman. Because if I walk up to a pretty young woman off the street, walking down the street, she can just say, I got a man, I got a boyfriend, I'm married, even though she's not. She can just say it as a way of a defense mechanism. And if you follow her down the street, that's going to be considered harassment, and that's going to be considered street harassment. As these bitches wanted to go out and put out there as street harassment almost 10 years ago, where guys on the street, guys just sitting, walking down the street and see a woman and want to talk to her. I mean, they had this experiment about this one white woman walking down the streets of Manhattan with all these guys, trying to holler at her. But like I told you fellas before, and I know y'all want to say, and I want to be one of those guys that's on the internet that says American women are trash, and I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. Well, I'm not going to say that, one, because I've never been out of the country yet. I still have my passport, and I'm planning on doing a cruise, probably later on this year. The Virgin Voyage cruise. I'm thinking about doing that, where I can just travel throughout the Caribbean islands, and in October, when everything's done, when the tax season is officially ended, and I have a few months to recover to start this whole bullshit all over again. And reevaluate my career choices, reevaluate my life. The point of mentioning the cruise is that there are women on these cruises, on these adult cruises. Of course, am I going to get rejected by them? Yeah, of course. Am I going to get some pussy off of that cruise? Yeah, probably. Will I have a good time? Just hanging out, doing me, being that free agent. Hell yeah, hell the fuck yeah. See fellas, you gotta enjoy your life. You have to enjoy being a man. You have to enjoy doing manly things. You gotta enjoy yourself in this life. Because you gotta remember, 100 years from now, nobody's gonna really give a fuck who talking crazy in 88 is. They're not gonna give a fuck about me. When I keel over 120, 21, 26, nobody's gonna give a fuck about me. The generation, the several generations afterwards, they're not gonna give a fuck about me. I mean, think about it. Did you really give a fuck about the people 100 years ago that lived 100 years ago? Unless they were in the history books, you really didn't. And I'm not talking about having a legacy. I'm not talking about doing bullshit, doing something stupid like, trying to have children or offspring. Because that can also go sideways. Alright? An acquaintance of mine just recently passed away. And he had a wife, he had a child, but he chose he chose working and philandering and doing his own thing rather than establishing a family. So he died without his family around. Only his brother and a few other relatives that surrounded him. Had a whole lot of friends that cared about him too. And that's what's important in this life. Who's going to care for you when you're old? And I don't like really talking about it, but I had a family scare regarding my mom. And she mentioned to me that who's going to take care of you when you get older? See, I have about 20 more 20 more years to be the same age as my mother is, 71. 20 years, I'm going to be 72 years old. All right? 72 years old. And keep in mind, people, life comes at you fast. Blink of an eye, I'm going to be 72 years old. 10 years from now, I'm going to be 62. Another 10 years, I'm going to be 72 years old. And a lot of people are going to be dying off along the way. I'm going to lose a lot of people. I know it. I feel it in my bones. The older you get, you're going to, and you're still alive and you're still healthy, a lot of your friends and family members are going to start dying off. That's just the fact of life. That's the circle of life. That's the fact of life. That's the circle of life. We only get the years that God gives us. But it's up to you to enjoy every minute of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Enjoy the good times. Persevere through the bad times. And try to stay sane during the ugly times of your life, because those are the three cycles of life. You're in your 20s. The men that I'm talking to, they're going to be in their 20s. Y'all are in your 20s right now as you speak. Hell, I turned 20 in 1994. That was 32 years ago. 32 years ago. You know, 32 years ago, I could not imagine myself sitting on the balcony or in a bar, in a Bronx apartment smoking a cigar. I had other plans. I had other plans of moving out on the West Coast, moving out to Seattle, Washington, and having a nice little career out there. Maybe in a family, maybe a nice little career, maybe a nice little, doing very well for myself. But I'm back home. I'm back home in my home city where I grew up, where I lived for the last 30 plus years, last 20 years, when I came back to New York. And this is where I'm thriving. This is where I'm going to be. This is going to be for, just for a little while. That's why I got a lot of respect for Ant CEO, that young brother out there. He's wise. He's wise before his years. And if he keeps this up, he's going to be the grand wizard. But I want you fellas, look, let's not take dating that seriously in the United States, because granted, there's going to be a lot of women that you're going to encounter that's not going to be interested in having a family. They're not going to be interested in having a girlfriend, not much less being your girlfriend. See, I made a mistake years ago. I made a whole lot of mistakes in dating years ago. Trying to turn a loser into my wife. This woman was not a cheerleader. This was not my cheerleader. She did not cheer me on. She did not encourage me. She did nothing for me. But I fell in love with her. And that was my mistake. I simped out. But unfortunately, I didn't learn that. When I learned that lesson, I learned it very early in life, and I recovered. I didn't think I was going to recover, but I recovered. Did it change me to the point where, hey, should I get back on that horse again and try to get married? No, I didn't really see a point in it. Because let me tell you something. When it comes to marriage, the advantage is always the women in this country. You have to continue being a husband, but she doesn't have to continue being a wife. And that's something to be cautious of. But we also have some fellas out there that are mama's boys. Talking about Jaden Daniels. He's a proverbial mama's boy, a son husband. Somebody that just the type of person that I would actually clown. I would clown it. That song we would clown. This is the boy we clown in the schoolyard, because you never go anywhere without your mama. You cry when your mama leaves. You're happy when your mama's around. Nothing wrong, and there's nothing wrong with it. But at a point in time in a young man's life, you got to step away from your mama and be a man. Look at it like in nature. In all the nature channels, when the young cubs and the lioness and the cubs, she's there to protect those cubs until they get big enough to go ahead and venture out and do their own thing. That's the cycle of life. You never see the adult lion still attached to their mama? No. Birds lay an egg. They're young birds until they learn how to fly. And when they fly, they're on their own. They leave the nest. The cycle of life. You fellas got to leave the nest. You got to get out of your mama's house, your parents' house. You got to get out of that. You got to leave the room. You got to get up out of your racing car bed, pack your shit up, and leave the nest. I'll tell you a story about my father, how he left the nest. And he told me this when I was 16 years old, how he came to New York. He just graduated from high school, applied for a good factory job in the city that he grew up in. And he was waiting for that call. But while he was waiting for his call, he was celebrating with some of his relatives who were venturing out to New York City to find work. to find work and find a good job, make a few dollars, make a nice little living, get a pension, possibly come back to that same town that he grew up in. So he was joking around saying, "Hey, I'm going to New York with you. I'm gonna pack my stuff up. I'm gonna be in that van." Boom. But of course, he was kidding. He told me I was just playing around. I wasn't serious. I wasn't serious about leaving Georgetown, South Carolina. But he had to do something. He had to get out of that house. Next day, my pop's relatives drove up, asked my grandmama, "Is Danny ready to go?" And my grandma came into his room and said, "Daniel, them boys out there said you going to New York." He said, "Yeah, Mama, I'm going to New York." So he packed up everything that he owned in a nice little Piggly Wiggly bag, hopped into that van, and headed off to 995 up to New York City, where he was roommates with his brother and his cousins. Found a good job, met my mom, had 3 children, and lived a nice little life for himself. I want you to have that same life. Shoot for the stars, but let's be realistic. But be realistic in your goals. Let me see how much time I have left. All right, I've been rambling for 27 minutes, so I'm going to cut this short. I'm going to cut this pep talk short, because that's what it is a pep talk. I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go into the Invest Fest. Well, maybe I'll go into a little bit, because let me tell you something about the Invest Fest. What happened on the singles mixers at the Invest Fest. I can't explain why the fellas ain't showing up. Maybe because there's a myriad of reasons why they're afraid of getting rejected by these women. And I understand that black women, American women, women in general, they just like to reject you. They don't mind you approaching them, but they would love to reject you. That's why I don't really do any cold approaching. If I sit down next to a woman and we have a nice little conversation, and if there's a vibe there, I'm gonna make an effort. But if it's just nothing, if she rejects me, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Like I said before, people, there's nothing wrong with being rejected. It's healthy. It's healthy. It could cause a mental strain at the same time, but it's also healthy for you, because rejection is God's protection. All right? But that's all I got for you. That's all I got for you on the balcony today. I want y'all to go ahead and get some sleep. This is Talking Crazy 88, and I am out of here. And black men, let's be careful out there, all right?